Jonathan. Making an impact already. All right. So a couple things we're going to do, and you got to remember, I came from education world, so there always has to be some type of activity involved. So I had asked last week, or Jared was supposed to ask everybody last week to bring a pencil or pen or crayons if you can't use pencil or pens or allowed around sharp objects yet to write with. So there's also a piece of paper on the table. So if you'll go ahead and take your piece of paper, we're gonna do, because again, the artist in me, we're gonna do just a little activity. Everybody's got to be included in this one. Now, if you've done this before, you have to promise me, and remember the four-way test, is it the truth? You have to promise that you are not going to skip ahead and tell people what it is. All right? So I'm going to read a story. And as I read that story, I just want you to draw out on the paper what you're thinking you see. Okay? I'm going to read out a short story, and as I read that out, you're just going to draw on that piece of paper what I'm reading. So there's several steps to it, so don't make the first part too big. Okay? You got to use a little creative side here, Deb. It's not all analytical here, a little creativity. Okay? Everybody ready? All right. So this is not a depressing story. There once was a kid with no arms and no face. So you're just drawing out what you see. There's not a right or a wrong, remember, unless it's wrong. One day, he was chased by 6 bees. Everybody good? 6 bees. All right. To escape them, he jumped into a pond. So I gotta give credit to our youth minister for helping with this, because he did this with our kids when we were going through quarantine and couldn't do it. He got on Zoom with our boys and did this. So this is not original. I'm not that creative. All right, so we have a boy who had no face, no arms. He was surrounded by 6 bees. To escape them, he jumped into a pond. The pond was under 2 hills. In front of those hills were 2 rocks. 2 rocks in front of those hills. All right, behind the hill was a setting sun. So I'll regroup. There once was a kid with no arms. One day he was chased by 6 bees. To escape them, he jumped into a pond. The pond was under 2 hills. In front of the hills were 2 rocks. Behind those hills was a setting sun. He cried big tears that made a puddle on either side of the pond. Big tears, huge. Never said he didn't have eyes. This is the artistic part of it, Doc. Come on. There's people from NC State doing this activity. I would expect more. That's true. Remember, it's only wrong if you're not right. All right. His tears made grass grow out of the pond. All right. So one of the things I'm going to talk about in just a moment, and the club assembly is going to be short. You're not going to have to hear me talk longer than you need to. But one of the things we're going to talk about is friendship and camaraderie. And so this is the vulnerable part about it. And again, no right or wrong. It's everybody's interpretation. Take a look at your picture, share it with the person next to you. Take a look at what each other drew for. All right, so everybody is ready to see what everybody's got an interpretation in your head, right? Of what this story looked like. Okay. Did you share yours with anybody that it looked exactly the same? Some were probably pretty similar. Some were close. They were pretty detailed instructions, right? There was nothing that said it's, you know, it was really vague. It was behind the rock, grow out of the pond. So it was pretty specific. But here's the thing, and this is why I think it's important. So you want me to read the story again? There once was a kid with no arms. So that would be, and no face. So that would be the nose and mouth right there in the middle. He was chased by 6 bees. So you've got your 6 bees surrounding the boy. To escape them, he jumped into a pond. So the middle of the pond, all around him. The pond was under 2 hills. That would be the eyes. In front of the hills were 2 rocks. That would be the center of the eyes. Behind the hills was a setting sun. So the top of his head. He cried big tears that made a puddle on either side of the pond. That would be the ears. And then this one doesn't have it, but his tears made grass grow out of the pond. That would be the whiskers. So other than this being a cute kid activity that we just did with 30 through 85-year-olds, there's a purpose to it. And I think that it's one of the things that I want to continue to stress throughout the year. Number one, there's not a black and white, right or wrong perception of everything. The way that we see things, the way that we hear things, the way that we interpret things aren't always right. There's not a right or wrong. So when we come across people that don't think the way we do or have the same beliefs, I think it's really important for us to keep in mind that, and even people that went to state or Duke for that matter, that the thoughts and reasons for those, we just need to understand it. Nobody sat here and made fun of anybody else's drawing. I mean, some looked better than others, some were very professional, but yeah. But the bottom line is that everybody heard the story and you all heard the exact same words and you all drew it differently from the person next to you. So my point is not just here, obviously, because we have a lot of the same vision, a lot of the same goals, but out in society, I think that it's not just incumbent upon us to treat each other well and treat each other in the community well, but to also stand up when we see an injustice like that. And so my point to this is, yeah, it's a fun activity, but take this idea with you that we can hear things, we can see things, we can think differently, process, create artistic differences, and it doesn't make anybody better than anybody else, and it doesn't make them right or wrong. It means that there's a difference in opinion. And I definitely think that, again, as we go out into the community this year, that's one of the things I want us to stress. And so we've talked before about perception of Rotary or perception of Kiwanis or other clubs or organizations or groups or businesses or companies and what those perceptions are. And we can just go out and redefine them ourselves. And there's not a right or a wrong to it. So on to the things that I do want to talk about that are more on the forefront for this year are the goals really for this year, and they're pretty basic. They're pretty basic. Membership, it's our 100th year, 100th anniversary. I would love for us to have 100 members. Yeah. No, there is no drawing. We're done drawing. You can draw this if you want, Mary Jane. I didn't draw it out. So there's really not a right or wrong. Yeah. Draw 100 numbers. Yeah. I would like to see our membership at 100. And it's not because we need more people. It's because I think there's people out there that would make great Rotarians that we haven't met yet. And so if you own a business and there's people out there that are clients of yours and you haven't met them yet, it's the same thing. So there's plenty of Rotarians out there in the community and we just haven't met them yet. So I think that as we look with membership and we start thinking about activities for the year and outreach, it doesn't have to be something that stands out. It has to be somebody that values the 4-way test and that wants to do good in the world. The second piece I want us to focus on is friendship. And that comes back to some of the things that I think that you'll hear District Governor talk about next week is, really started as fellowship and business relationships. There are a lot of people in here that I don't necessarily know their background. I mean, we talk and we have lunch and we hang out, and Hope and Kim and I have talked about that. We would have never crossed paths or definitely not been the friends that we are if it weren't for Rotary. So I definitely would like to encourage us. And of course we can't mandate anything, but, and it's my goal, at least for this year and beyond, once I started putting thought into this, if you haven't sat down and had coffee or breakfast or lunch with somebody in the club that doesn't sit at our table regularly, I'd encourage you to do that. And it's not to make the club look better or anything like that. It's so that you will reach out and they'll have somebody reach out. And I assure you that there's people who are here that come and may still feel uncomfortable. It took me a while to feel comfortable. People may be on Zoom and it may be not comfortable in personal settings. So just reach out for somebody. Pull out the yearbook that you got from Kim, open it up and find somebody. Hey, it's David from Rotary. No, we haven't talked before. You want to just grab a cup of coffee and meet somebody new. I think that starts when we start looking at change that we can make across the community and across the world. It starts with really little things like that. And that leads into the final thing that I want to focus on this year is community. So a lot of us, if not all of us, have been blessed with a life that most people only dream of in so many ways, with health, wellness, finances, family, our beliefs. And I feel like, again, and I alluded to this earlier, if we sat at home and we didn't share that with other people, it does us absolutely no good whatsoever. And so whether it's finances or time or energy or thoughts or creativity, I want us to just share as much as possible with the community this year. And it's not to get our name out there. It's because there's kids that need us. There's parents that need us. There's adults, there's senior citizens, there's recluse. There's so many people that need our help. And here's the funny thing, we don't even know who they are yet. But something I feel in the work that we're going to do this year and what the board has set forth, we're going to find those people and we're going to make a difference. So those are really the three things that, if we just narrowed it down, that I would like for our club to focus on this year. And as the board works together, we'll keep putting those in place. Obviously, there's a lot of things with technology and everything like that happens that are always a fun work in progress. Those will happen. I'm not concerned about those. But if it was, what are you going to do that's going to leave an impact? Membership, friendship, and community. Those are three serious things that we are capable of really making a difference with. So two other pieces that I feel very strongly about. Number one is the 3-minute bio, and that's going to return August 18th. And there's two reasons to it. Again, there's a lot of you that I haven't had a chance to even sit and eat lunch with, let alone have conversations outside or learn much about you other than your name and your spouse and you're retired or your work and I think that's really important. It goes a long way. If you were a member of a fraternity or of marching band or anything like that in college or high school, you really got to spend a lot of time with people, and a lot of vulnerable situations and in a lot of intimate situations and learn a lot about them. And I think this is no different. And when we talk about supporting each other, it's one thing to send out prayers and well wishes, and it's another one to have that wholeheartedness about us. And I think that that will bring a lot to it. Just to say, you know, I didn't know that. I didn't know that about their family. But the other piece to it, and what DG Chris Justice wants us to focus on, is particularly the business aspects. And the community wouldn't be who we are if we didn't have successful businesses, and we didn't have successful schools, and we didn't have successful chambers. We wouldn't be who we are. So tell us about your business. If you need people that you're hiring, let us know. Send it out to the group. Email is there. Anybody can use it. If you have an opening at your church for a music director or an organist, or at your school, let us know. We are all here to help. And think about, let's say that I know 50 people and Scott knows a whole lot more than 50, but Scott knows 50. Multiply everybody just in this room by 25 or 30 people that they know really well, and think about how well you could fill those positions or void that you have, or that need for yourself, your business, your church, your school. And then the other thing, and this is a little bit new, and I want to start this, and we can start it today, but it's different than announcements. Announcements are items and activities that are coming up. And it's called the Good News Share. It's just something that I couldn't come up with a clever name, so that shows you how creative I really am. But the Good News Share, I'd like for one person, and it doesn't have to be delegated because it happens all the time, just one person to stand up and just share good news. And I think, again, it lets us into something. It could be your kid won a first place in the science fair, or, you know, something, one of the things they show on Monopoly cards of, you know, beauty pageants or what have you. But when you have good news to share, I want to hear about that. That makes my day, because believe it or not, there's times where we come in here and not everybody's okay. So there's days when I'll need to hear good news, Hope might need to hear good news, Keith, somebody, but we'll need to hear some good news and know that there's being good things happening out in the world. So that's really all that I have for today for Club Assembly. There's not a lot. The board's going to work hard. They are working hard. And obviously we just get to be up here, and Kim does so much of the work. So we definitely appreciate all that. But are there any questions before I ask for good news? The other piece that I'll add is, if you're on a committee that it's not just to be on a committee. It's not just to be listed on it. Be active in it. Take part in it. And if it's not one that you're really that interested in, take part in it anyway. Learn something new, and move along. And next year, let Kim know, please don't put me on that committee. and she won't. If you're committee chair, the accountability piece, I think, is really critical. So committee chairs, there's a lot of work definitely to do, and we appreciate all of your work. So at this time, before we go into the four-way test and we leave here and everybody goes and has a wonderful day that we've all been blessed with, who would like to share good news with the club? Somebody's got great news that's happened recently since we last were here.
But my mother, who is now 90 years old and still is independent, to a retirement center. COVID almost did her in because she was at home, isolated, very depressed, very whatever. And we moved her to Fountains of Albemarle, which is actually where Richard Leonard is right now. And so she's there. This woman gets up every day and she now combs her hair, she puts on clothes, she puts on jewelry, wears lipstick, goes out and is having the greatest time with all people than anybody I've ever seen. And that is such a because she was taking it into the sky. That's very beautiful.
That's awesome. Yeah, Mary.
Big event yesterday. Steve said in the paper we have we dedicated the new police station over a year after it was open. We cut a ribbon, then we had a great event out front.
That's awesome news. Awesome. Thanks, Kyle. Anybody else? Good news to share? Deb? It's great news. And moving. So I want you to take the things and Adam, if you're like me, add them to your prayer list and your praise list as always, for all the things we heard from Kyle's and Mare and Carol, and keep those going. So that being said, if there's any further announcements, Kyle's, Wayne. Other announcements? Kyle's. I would encourage everybody, if you've got time, take time to introduce yourself to somebody that maybe sits at a different table. We're not forcing seats. This is about free choice, and it's about us growing together closer as a club. And I mean, believe it or not, the more we do together and get to know each other, cross tables and about each other, and look at how bad the person's drawing is next to us, then the more we're going to want to do things together out in the community. So I encourage you, take time to speak to each other. It made me feel welcome when Judy Yance brought me here years ago. It made me feel really welcome. Obviously, Dave Williams came up and said hello and introduced himself. And I think Wayne did when he was president at the time. But that was about it. And when I came back, those were the two people I knew. And that was it. So meet other people. And if you know anybody, just say, I'm glad you were able to come today. Good to see you. Glad David shut up finally, something like that at least. So, but let's try to do that. All right. Well, if you will, join me in the 4-way test. The things we think, say, or do. First, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?